Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
Good morning. Well, hang on, folks. We'll be there in a second.
Morning. Hold on.
This is a typical Monday. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I don't know why my mic wasn't working. Okay.
Well, because I didn't have the volume turned up. That
Okay.
would probably have helped the situation.
Let's restart that, maybe, if possible, because that was a horrible beginning.
Okay, let's try another take here. I'm going to do this. Take 3.
Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
Good morning, Erik.
Good morning, Pat. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing. It's a typical Monday morning.
Typical Browns blow it and choke away the game, and then on top of that, Ohio State, choking away their game.
Yeah.
And side note, Indians getting no hit. I mean, nobody cares about baseball, but that's just a side note.
Oh, I wouldn't say nobody cares about baseball. I do. When they win.
Yeah.
When they don't win, that's another story.
I mean, the Indians have been no-hit 3 times. And ironically, the same starting pitcher has been on the mound for the Indians all 3 times.
The Indians have their issues. They're without pretty much a coach right now because Terry's off getting surgery. I don't know that he'll even come back. As far as the no-hitters and stuff like that, that's all connected to that. I think Frank Ona was there. This team would be running a whole lot better.
Definitely. What do you think? There's rumors that the league is going to or trying to put in a minimum salary cap of $100 million. Every team would have to pay $100 million at least in payroll.
Well, that would probably piss the Dolans off.
Well,
with their $45 million payroll.
Well, supposedly there's supposed to be a minority owner coming in.
Yeah, anyway. But that doesn't mean nothing. We've seen that in sports before. How many times have you heard about somebody coming into the Browns? Al Lerner was when Modell owned it. Al Lerner was a secondary owner. Even Haslam owned part of Pittsburgh in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the Rooneys were not going to give up a lot of percentage. I didn't realize that Lerner was.
Al Lerner was back in the day when Modell owned the team. Al Lerner he was a secondary owner. He was a minority owner. Yeah.
That would make sense why he ended up, being the guy.
Well, they tried to say that wasn't the truth, but everybody knew it was. Yeah, because he was a minority owner of the Browns in the first round. I kind of figured when I heard he was going after it, he was going to be the one that ended up with it, and he did.
I mean, the Dolans just need to sell. I'm sorry, but they just need to go. They need to go as far away as they can.
Well, they're trying to run it profitably, and it's not. It's like certain radio stations around here. There's just no way they're going to be profitable, except on some of the sub-channels, which, going into a brass tacks thing like this, I can make more money off of the sub-channels by marketing the YouTube stuff and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they're making that's where the bread and butter is for them. But they try to keep it so that they're making all the money, and it's I think we don't need an owner like that.
No.
We need an owner that wants to win.
I understand Tampa Bay is able to get through with like a $29 million payroll to the World Series. But, yeah, they could get to the World Series, but they ain't going to win. They're not going to win.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
Well, I mean, they've proven, though. They've made it to the World Series once or twice in the last couple of years, and they've lost both times.
Well, look at Cleveland. You know, you got apples and oranges there, but it's still the bottom line's the same. Unless you put out the money and get the talent and keep somebody, you know, and you don't trade off your players like Francisco Lindor.
I agree there.
You know,
he's not really getting along with the fans in New York either.
Yeah, I've heard that. I bet he's real happy he went there.
Oh yeah, chasing the money.
Yeah, we've seen movies like that
all the time. Every professional athlete out there. But anyway, putting that topic aside, let's go with the Ohio State game first. With that, I still have a lot of questions on C.J. Stroud. Like, the whole first half, and he's done it in both games, he was overthrowing receivers a lot. And then there were a couple of plays where receivers just flat out dropped passes that were right in their hands. But other than that, like, he was airmailing receivers more than he was actually connecting with receivers.
Well, I'm going to tell you about Ohio State. That
defense?
That defense has had problems in the past. I thought they got better this year, but you can't really prove that by me. I don't know if it's the coordinator or what the deal is with that. I don't think Stroud's the whole answer. I don't think Stroud's the whole problem. But, you know, the simple fact of it is they pretty much couldn't get ahead of Minnesota the other night, and in past years they would have. You got to give that kid credit, that quarterback credit, because he is hanging in there. He was good. He had set records in California when he was in high school, and that he had state records for a lot of the games or a lot of the seasons that he played. But there are issues with him, and these issues need to be addressed. I have yet to see him in 2 games that I've watched now. I've yet to see him take the ball and run with it. And I've seen holes. Hell, yesterday, even if you watch the Browns game, Baker went through a damn hole like he was made to do it. We aren't going to talk about him yet, but you need to apply the same thing to college ball, and that kid's just not doing it. He's a pocket passer, or he either takes the ball and hands it off, or he takes and passes it.
In the past, and I'm tying this back to Ohio State, but in the past with the Browns, it was all defensively. It was always one thing. They could never set the edge. Ohio State now cannot set the edge at all. And they need to change that, because if they keep up with that, they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to lose 2 or 3 more games, because if the end is caving inside, that just opens up a hole to the outside for the running back or even quarterback to run 20 yards and not be stopped.
Yep.
Whether it's the D end or outside linebacker, they need to set the edge, and they don't do it. They need to fire the linebacker coach. He might be one of the top recruiters in the all of college football, but he sucks. Like, he came from Michigan. I'm pretty sure his whole time there, they never had any good linebackers. He might be able to recruit good defensively, but he can't coach. And that's his main job.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you said that, and this is what I thought of.
Yep.
We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan. We're from Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he just...
Even when I'm tired, I still got it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But it's just, they need better position coaches. They got the top defensive line coach in all of college football, so that's good. But linebacker coach, and the Browns have seen the one defensive backs coach, because the Browns fans have, because he was the defensive backs coach for like 4 years for the Browns. His name's Jack Halfley. He's not good at all. And then you got Kerry Combs, who's also co-defensive backs coach, who's the defensive coordinator, who I don't think is really qualified to be a defensive coordinator.
Well, I think Combs is part of the problem.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying by he's not qualified.
I think he's part of the problem there, and I think if they move anybody around in order to alleviate some of this, which I've been watching some of the news wires and that on Ohio State, and there's getting to be some grumblings about what this defense is doing, and it ain't going to be long before that the controlling echelon at that school starts saying, we better start looking at this, or we're gonna lose our season. And they better start looking at it now.
And it's sad that, like, the head coach really has no power to make that move. It's the athletic director that has to make the move on assistants. So, Gene Smith better get up and do something about it, because if he doesn't, the season's over. And
I'm not so sure it isn't over anyway. You've already lost. You're the second game in. You've lost one, and the simple fact of it is, because you're the second game in, you've got 6 or 8 more games to play, and including Michigan. That team up north. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do something now, and you end up losing 2 or 3 or 4 games, your playoff hopes are over. I think I'm beginning to wonder if they're not over already.
Exactly.
This is going to be a rebuilding effort
with
for
the defense. I mean, they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I had seen something earlier in the week that the Ohio State was just playing base defense the whole game, like that. They were just basic defense. You can't do that if you want to win. You have to get into the more challenging stuff. I had saw they were just trying to keep that off tape for Oregon, and they were going to do it during the Oregon game, but clearly they didn't, and they got destroyed. They might not just have the talent to do anything but base, and if they don't, then they better do something, because if you can't do anything more than base defense, you're going to lose 3, 4, maybe 5 games. And Ohio State can't afford to do that if Ryan Day wants to keep his job.
Yeah, well, I wondered, when you take a team over like that, you're always taking the coach before you's team over. Mm-hmm. And Urban had a pretty decent team there. But the fact is he left. There was some coaching changes that were decided on when Day came in, and now Day is responsible for all of it, and he needs to be held accountable. If there is recruiting issues or what have you, then that needs to be addressed. People were playing for Myers. He drafted him, or he
recruited him.
He recruited them and everything else. And it wasn't just Ohio State's name that brought them to that school. It was because of Urban. Mm-hmm. And now Urban is in Florida getting his ass whipped.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
by one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, that's pretty pathetic.
And I'm wondering what's going to happen when Houston comes here this next week. Because that's who we have next.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Watson doing anything for Houston. Just they don't have this skill or talent.
Well, I saw a couple of clips of that game. They actually looked pretty good. Of course, it was Jacksonville they were playing.
Well, yeah, that tells you a lot.
There was 2 or 3 teams in the. I guess we can switch gears and go into the NFL. You ready for that?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. There was 2 or 3 teams that I watched yesterday that actually did surprise me. Pittsburgh surprised me. I didn't think they'd beat Buffalo. In fact, one of the other sports shows that I do, I had picked Buffalo to win. Cincinnati was another one. Cincinnati pretty much whipped some tail yesterday with Joe Burrow for, I think he was close to 400 yards of passing, 351 yards, something like that. I think I saw. And that was respectable.
I mean, that game almost ended in a tie if their kicker didn't hit the game-winning field goal at the end.
And then we go back to the Dallas game, the Dallas and Tampa Bay. I wanted Dallas to win that game, and they ended up getting beat. One of my cohorts on that other show was talking about how respectable it was. It was a respectable loss. Well, ain't no such thing as respectable. You either win or you lose. You're either a winner or you're a loser. And as far as let's start into the Browns a little bit here. As far as the Browns go, there was an old adage from way back. I don't remember who said it, but the adage was in football is a game of inches and errors. The team with the most amount of inches and the least amount of errors is going to win the game. And that's what you saw last night. That's what you saw.
Oh, yeah.
Kansas City, even though in the beginning of that game, they were playing pretty conservative and everything like that, and the Browns got up on them. But in that second half, they played a perfect game. And that's what beat the Browns. The Browns didn't. The Browns started off with a kicker, a punt that the kicker dropped the damn ball. That started that fiasco. Then you had Chubb's. Yeah, he was a chump last night.
On that play, yeah.
Then you had Chubb's fumble, and then even though there was a couple of good turnovers and stuff like that, or there was a good couple of good stops by Garrett and Clowney. It was still the giveaway takeaway thing. There was still way in the takeaway.
The problem is the defenders would get the pressure but slip. They couldn't keep their footing, and then Mahomes would pass for 10 to 15 yards, and that happened at least 5 times. And unfortunately, 3 of them were Tack McKinley, who missed a lot of practice time.
The other thing with that,
but I don't know if it's just bad cleats, bad turf, what, but you need to keep your footing. Because if you would have kept your footing, those plays, those positive chunk plays for Kansas City would not have happened.
Well, how about the 75-yarder?
Okay, yeah, that one.
That was.
I
just shook my head.
Luck.
As soon as I saw that happen, I thought, well, this game's over.
I know. I mean, if Johnson wouldn't have been playing the man and would have played the ball instead, he probably would have had the pick. But instead, he was playing the receiver and not paying attention to the ball.
Well, he was just doing what he was told.
I know, but if he would have turned around and would have been looking for the ball, that could have been an interception, and Browns probably would have won if he got the interception. And I know that's hindsight, and we know what hindsight is, but that's just the truth. If he would have been turned around and looking for the ball, the Browns would have had an interception.
Well, as far as that particular play, there was so many issues that actually started out bad and got worse. You had Jedrick Wills got hurt. If he would have been in there, that would have been a whole different game.
Because Chris Hubbard, no matter what position he plays, he ain't good.
And then you had my favorite part of the game, where you have a player that gets beat by a coach on the opposing team, shoves the opposing team's coach around. Not much. He just paid him back.
Punches him in the face a little bit, but hey.
And then he gets kicked out of the game.
But the coach doesn't.
And the coach stayed in. And that, to me, as far as I'm concerned, was completely wrong.
I don't know how. And the problem is, that ejection came from New York. That wasn't even the ref's decision. That was, they have direct communication with the league office in New York, and the league office said eject the player. Why didn't he? They
should have ejected the player and the coach both.
Exactly.
I will still stand behind that.
I agree, and that's ridiculous. They didn't.
Anybody watching, I'm getting a cup of coffee and I really need it, so I apologize for that.
But
I'm not really any good till I've had my third cup of coffee. And
they need to do something to that coach. They'll probably try to fine him, but that's not enough. I hope they don't suspend the player on top of.
I don't see how they could suspend that player.
Or that coach doesn't try to press charges because.
Well, if he tried that, he wouldn't get anywhere. It was pretty apparent what he did. He was the one that started the whole damn thing.
But he was just kind of. I thought, from what I saw, he was just trying to pull the guy off, which is against league rules, obviously. But that's a penalty. But punching the guy in the face, or whatever.
When I saw that they penalized Kansas City for 15, the Kansas City bench for 15 yards, that was something else. You penalize your whole bench for a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct. That tells you there's issues there.
Oh yeah, I thought it was going to be on the Browns player from the beginning. Then they said Kansas City bench. I'm like, what did their bench do? But then I saw the replay. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, it did.
So, but that whole sequence of whatever was ridiculous. And then the Browns offense sputtered off in the second half. Typical Browns, They play good first three quarters. Well, the fourth quarter was when it really tailed. And that's when they needed the offense to come through the most.
And it didn't.
Especially on that last drive when the Browns threw and Baker threw an interception. I can't believe they almost scored on that play at the end of the first half.
What play was that?
The lateral play.
Oh yeah, that would have been classic if that would have got in. I enjoyed watching that, and Kansas City didn't even know that was coming.
That reminded me of the Music City Miracle back in with Tennessee Titans. I forget who they were playing back in like 2002, where they did the same thing, and for them it was actually a game-winning touchdown. But that kind of reminded me. That play kind of reminded me of them, and that play. But I think the Browns really, I mean, they need chemistry on defense, but they also need to get their players to stop slipping.
Well, I got to stop you there. If this was the last game or in mid-season, I would see really no excuse for what happened. But you have to consider this was the first game of this season, and you really have to consider the fact that Cleveland did really well in the first half.
Mm.
They kicked ass in the first half, and the whole thing comes down to if this was any other game halfway through the season or whatever, it would not be as interesting. But Cleveland did well in the first half, and they did better in the first half than any time I've ever watched them on the first game of the season. They did really well as far as in the first half. They sputtered in the second half and ended up losing. But I think there's good things to come yet.
I mean, I do agree.
I was encouraged.
The defense, every time they had the ball, they scored. You can't give up points every time. They might have punted once, but you can't give up points every time they have the ball. And also, their possessions were like 5 to 10 minutes long every time they had the ball. So, giving up points every time you're on defense and letting them have sustained drives, you're not going to win. Your defense is going to
You have to look at what was happening there, though, Erik. You had some things on the defense that wouldn't have happened had the players been in there.
I mean, Stewart played well, even though he's a cornerback playing safety, but he still played well in that time that he was.
Did you watch any of the other games yesterday, or
the Steelers game, and then Cincinnati, and then a little bit of the Packers and other Saints. That's it. Packers and Saints.
And tonight we got the Ratbirds against Arizona coming up tonight. And I'm taking Arizona in that one, but I don't know if...
No, we can't, because Arizona beat Tennessee
yesterday. Who are they playing? I know the Ratbirds play tonight.
Yeah, I know they're playing too, because I know... The only reason I know they beat Tennessee is their Chandler Jones from Arizona had 5 sacks yesterday. So that dude's he's working his way to a new contract. But I will check for you the game tonight. Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Yep.
I have already taken and said publicly I think the Raiders are going to take that.
Yeah, I mean...
I always go with the West Coast teams. Because the West Coast teams, the chances of them beating an East Coast team are probably better than 50-50.
Well, and the Ratbirds lost main running back in the preseason for the season, J.K. Dobbins. And I think they lost their backup running back also in the preseason.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I guess we'll see tonight. I want to see what they look like. I hate to admit this, but I was fairly impressed with Pittsburgh yesterday. Ben still looked beat up. He still looked old. But some of the other stuff that they've added in the time that actually give them the chance to win was not too bad. And they played Buffalo, and Buffalo's usually a pretty good team. However, like I said, it's the first game of the season. The rust was still there. In fact, if you watch the first part of that Cincinnati game and that Pittsburgh game both, those teams really looked rusty. But once they got into the second half, the rust came off, and they actually looked pretty good.
I'm surprised Burrow looked good because this is his first game action in almost a year, in 10 months.
Yeah, he came back pretty well from that Achilles problem that he had and the knee problem. I thought he came back really well from that.
Yeah, I mean, after how disturbing that knee injury was.
Yeah, that was not an easy thing to come back from. And I had heard even in the beginning of the season he was almost afraid to come back.
I mean, it helps they drafted his top receiver from LSU when he was there.
But, the whole thing with Cincinnati, they still didn't get him any protection.
No.
I watched probably about half of that game. I watched it up till they went to the halftime. Mm-hmm. And where I was impressed that they were moving the ball and everything like that, he kept getting nailed time after time after time. And when he comes up against somebody good, that'll be a 50-0 blowout.
Oh yeah, and I was surprised how well I know they gave up 24 points or something, but I was surprised how well their defense actually.
Yeah, they did all right. On the other hand, Pittsburgh didn't really start doing anything until the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I mean, I am not sure about Josh Allen. Honestly, I know he can throw the ball out of the stadium if he had the opportunity, but he just has a big
I'll
arm.
tell you, the one that I was just amazed to watch was that damn Kirk Cousins. He looked horrid. He was missing receivers left and right. He looked bad. I don't know if that was a great acquisition for that team or not.
No, he benefited from the Stefanski offense. But now that Kurt Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son, is now the coordinator, and they're running a whole different offense, they're not the same team. He's a product of the Stefanski offense. Without Stefanski, he's going to be nothing.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of games left.
Because the Stefanski offense is one of those offenses that hide the imperfections of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. With Stefanski now, you can tell his touch even on Mayfield and that. But as far as Mayfield, I keep hearing, well, you're not going to win with Mayfield, and you're not going to do this, and he's not that great. Well, I can recite time after time after time where you've had mediocre quarterbacks and won Super Bowls. Pittsburgh did it once. Baltimore did it once with Bubby Brister. Mm-hmm. And
even Kyle Buller.
That Bubby Brister should have actually only been a second-string quarterback, and he ended up kicking ass.
there's been a few cases of that, but um, these talking heads just do it to cause controversy. I don't know if they really believe what they say or what, but they just do it to stir up controversy.
You have several of these, bringing them up and bringing the media up. You have several of these guys that just go out to try to tick certain fans in certain areas off. You got that guy from Pittsburgh that actually loves his Pittsburgh team. Colin Coward.
Oh, Colin Coward. Yeah.
That guy is the as far as what I've seen of him and what I've heard from what he says, that guy is your typical Howard Stern of football.
Mm-hmm.
He just loves to rile people up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he makes the ridiculous statements that he does. And he has a hard-on for Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm. So does Mike Tannenbaum.
Yeah, that's another one.
The former, I wonder why he's not a GM in the league. Because he doesn't know how to work with talent. He doesn't know how to scout talent. Because if he knew how to scout talent, he wouldn't be saying this stupid, ignorant stuff about Baker Mayfield that he does. But he does it just to stir up crap with the fans. And he does good at it, but I see why he doesn't have a job in the league. Because he can't scout for his life.
Yeah. What do you think of the job that Urban Myers is doing down there?
Through one game, I think he needs a lot of help. The whole Tim Tebow experiment, if they really wanted to give him a chance, they needed to not cut him after the first game. They needed to give him the whole preseason. But if it was just a pub grab like it sounded like it is, then that was a mistake. And he's not going to be... If he's going to just do stupid stuff like that, he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to be fired after next year and be back in the, TV booth or back at Fox doing commentary.
Well,
he should have stayed. Truly.
To be honest about it, very few people can actually make it in the NFL. Very few college coaches, and I had high expectations for Urban, and I kind of still do. But on the other hand, you have to realize that a lot of these guys don't make it. I think Urban actually had the problems that a lot of college coaches coming to the NFL had. There was decisions that he made that actually were based on his college experiences, and they just didn't work. And I think Tebow was part of that. He thought Tebow, and he saw him in college, he thought he was a great kid. And when he got him in there, I don't know if he knew what to do with him.
Exactly. And, Nick Saban, who, I think is a better coach than Urban, but in college, but he failed miserably in the NFL. And, look, he's still successful in college, but college, bigger, faster, stronger in NFL versus college. And they can work more with the players in college to develop them. The players are what kind of in the NFL are what they are. They are what they're going to be unless they have a really good position coach that can push them over the top. Because the head coach is more like as people say, the general or the CEO. And the position coaches and coordinators are they're more the focus on the positions versus the head coach who has to kind of oversee everything. Where in college, the head coach has more time to get hands-on with every position. I don't know if you agree on that or not, but
the only thing you would think that if when you come to the NFL, they can't hold your hand all the way through it. You have to make you're the one that's got to make something out of yourself or not, and you can be coached. The bad part about it is a lot of these teams don't have coaching that's worth a crap, and that's kind of sort of the issue with Myers down there in Jacksonville. He's a good coach, but I don't think his supporting staff is what it should be yet.
Because they don't have the connections. When you're coming from college, you don't have the connections in the league unless you have an assistant that was brought up to the NFL, and then you bring them in and they have the connections. But other than that, they're not gonna be able to get the high quality NFL assistants. Like Browns, I know Stefanski was in the NFL, but I'm surprised they got Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, which is like the top offensive line coach in all of the NFL.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think I still think the jury's out on Urban. We'll see how. We're going to have to give us 3 or 4 games in order to see where it's all going to pan out at. I also think that pretty much it used to take 3 or 4 games in the earlier days of the NFL for you to actually see what the teams were going to actually be like. First game was always like a practice game, and that's pretty much what we saw last night or yesterday. And I think the NFL, I think they've come a long way. I think the Browns have really come a long way. If that's any indication of where we're going to be in 4 or 5 weeks.
Definitely, but we've talked about this before. The whole whether they should play or not in the preseason, but Kansas City played all their starters in every game in the preseason, and the Browns didn't, and Kansas City looked more ready. And especially I think with the defense. The offense has the chemistry and all, but the defense I think should have gotten a few more reps, because practice reps and game reps are 2 different things. Practice speed and game speed, especially against the Giants in a controlled environment, that's totally different than full speed preseason game speed.
Well, there you have the old dilemma of if you play them, they're going to get hurt, and if they get hurt, they're not going to have them, and you're going to start your season with an injury roster that's as long as your arm. And on the other hand,
who looked more prepared? Just between Browns and Kansas City, who looked more prepared? Who's the team? I
thought the Browns looked fine. I thought they were prepared enough. I think along the lines of what you are, though. I think they should have. Baker should have played more than a couple of snaps in the preseason.
I think I'm not like. I don't even think it's Baker. I think it's more the defense, because you have 9 new players out of 11. So,
well, I agree with that, but I think they should have played some more. I think that I don't know what the attitude of Stefanski was, but it seemed like he was just sloughing the 3 games of that off as not important.
Probably like you were saying, the whole do you want to come into the season with a bunch of injuries or, play
But then again, you played the first game and you ended up with 2 injuries. That guy with you had Wills and there was somebody else that was taken out. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But you're going to get injuries pretty much in any game, and it's how you play through that is the key to what you're going to do.
I mean, even though the defense gave up, a bunch of points, as I was saying pre-show, we had according to Pro Football Focus, we had one of the top 3 highest rated defensive linemen in the league with Malik McDowell. That guy's good. I mean,
that guy is pretty good. I'll give him that. That was a good acquisition.
Everybody was saying, oh, he did good in preseason, but that was against, guys who were going to be bagging groceries the next week. I mean, yeah, he was facing rookies, but I think he's going to be fine at defensive tackle this year and in the years to come. I think he's a mainstay on that defensive line. Him, Garrett, and if they could re-sign Clowney. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Clowney's only a 1-year term here. I don't see him being here next year. Yeah.
They talked about that when they first got him, and
they need another defensive end because you can't keep having the pressure on Myles Garrett because that's risking him more injury, and that's just not a smart move to have him double teamed and have a guy on the other side that does nothing like Olivier Vernon did last year.
Well,
the year before.
We'll see. We still got 16 more games.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh yeah, the lovely extension of the season, which eventually it'll go up to 18 games. I mean, it will, no doubt, but they had to test this out first.
And I think that was it's going to be a pretty good test. I think I want to wrap this up since we are getting towards the noon hour here. We'll extend things next week when things actually are in a little better condition here. I do want to thank everybody that's tuned in with us. If you're viewing us on YouTube, please, and you want to see more, please subscribe to us. We could use all the subscriptions we can get. If you are on Spreaker or any of the social medias, drop us a line and let us know you're watching. We would appreciate that. Until next week, Eric, you want to wrap it?
Have a good week, everyone. Talk to you next week. Peace.
And we'll see you next Monday at 11. And hopefully, go Browns.
Yes. And Buckeyes.
Tractor systems are offline. Number 1 for today's hits and all-time favorites.